Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Blackbar, and I am here with Liv, our social media manager here at Blackbar, also just church social media extraordinaire. And we've got a big old list of questions here from people that we've asked on Discord, social media, Facebook, all the different places. And we're going to get Liv, our resident expert on social media, her answer to the questions, and hopefully we can get some good stuff today. Liv, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you guys so much for having me. Let me just say, you guys, these people are the real deal. I know they show up on YouTube and they're all over the place, but they are the real deal. And it's been great working with all of you. So thank you so much. Super honored to be on the team and really pumped for our conversation today.
Awesome. Cool. Let's get into it. Thanks so much for the Patreons who help make this video possible. If you want to learn how to support the channel, check out the link in the description below. All right, Liv, we have the first question here. If my church is new to social media, what should I be doing? Whether that's liking, shares, posts, follows, whatever. What should you be doing brand new to social media as a church?
Yeah, well, if you're brand new to social media, welcome to the digital space. I promise it's not as scary as it seems to be, that it's very doable. So super excited for you starting out on social media. I think the biggest thing to kind of begin doing when you start your account is just create awareness of your church and that you're here. So meaning try to create as much shareable content as possible. And what I mean by shareable content is maybe you give away a little Starbucks gift card on your Instagram and say, hey, to celebrate our new account, you know, there's $30 on here, $15. Take this to your Starbucks. You know, you want to start creating shareable content that gets people really excited about you entering the digital space. And another way to add free value is you can also just begin to share scripture. You know, what does your congregation need right now during this season? What, maybe you're in a different region, maybe COVID has affected you, maybe there's other things going on, but think of how can I add value to my church before I start, you know, pushing out all of these announcements or all of these, hey, we need you to do this or click this connection card. You want to first create shareable content that people are actually wanting to share on their story or share on their Facebook page. And then two, you want to add as much value in this season as possible. You know, in order to get the word out, you could make a Facebook post, or you could have your lead pastor create a video and say, hey, welcome, you know, tag your favorite church friend below to get the word out. Those are easy things to do to create awareness. But what I think churches sometimes get stuck in is how do we get people actually excited that we've entered the digital space instead of just telling them we're here? How do we get them excited and looking forward to our post? So I think create shareable content and then add as much value as possible. Have fun with it.
Second question we've got here. What is the best way to engage youth on various social media platforms? I know I've helped plenty of churches whose like the person running the social media is more or less like the church secretary or something, and they've probably never heard of stuff like TikTok and Snapchat and whatnot. So for someone in that position trying to figure out how to be relevant to the youth space, what advice do you have to give?
I think the number one advice that I would have to give is show that your church has personality. I think that's the biggest way to engage youth, young adults even, is show that your church has personality. We're not just an institution. We are people, and we're ran by real human people. And the best way to show your church's personality is really through video. And even though maybe you're intimidated by video or it takes you a few times to record something, it's very, very worth it because statistics show Gen Z is very visual, but not only visual, they want to believe in a brand. They want to connect with someone, something who has the same values as them. And they can't see that in a graphic. They can't see that in an announcement post. It's really when you record yourself, they hear the tone of your voice, your facial expressions, your mannerisms, that's where they begin to connect with you. So I think a very free way is just start recording yourself. You know, is there something funny that happened at the church office? Or what are 3 easy ways to get connected to your church? Make a reel on Instagram, add some fun music in the background. But I think video is so underrated because we think it has to be very produced and you have to have a nice camera and you have to have Adobe Premiere. But really just grabbing your iPhone and shooting and just having fun with it. I think that's the best way to engage.
Third question we have here is one that I've been asked quite a few times, and we've done our best to answer it a couple times in videos. But how can I best read social media statistics or analytics? And then kind of an open-ended question: what can I do to help grow or affect change with those analytics?
Analytics, those are a very fun conversation because sometimes that feels like the only tangible thing we have to show, like, hey, my job matters here at the church.
Right.
Like, look, we got 100 shares. I should stay
Yeah.
on the payroll. And
Hmm.
it can be a little daunting. I know during this COVID season, some churches, they started out really strong as far as their stats and their watch time. And then by the time, July, August rolled around, things were plummeting because people are tired of hearing another Zoom call or hearing about another virtual event.
Right.
So, what I would say, churches overall, the biggest goal is not Instagram growth. And I know everyone's like, how can I grow my account? It's really not about growth. It's really about fostering the community, which in marketing terms just means engagement. So, how can
Mhm.
you track engagement within your congregation, within your youth account, maybe as a staff? That's something that you're required to go over, but it's really engagement. And engagement isn't even likes. As crazy as that is, Instagram really doesn't favor you if you have a lot of likes. What it is that that save and that share button. Those are
Mhm.
super. Those are like, that's all you want. Saves and share. So that's a really simple way, one on Instagram, to maybe start tracking. Get out a Google sheet and begin tracking your saves and your shares. Or, for me, I have quarter one, two, and three goals. I write down all my campaigns that are going. And then, hey, what is my share goal? What is my save goal? So every time I go back to that document, I'm I'm keeping in mind, okay, hey, I need to create that shareable content to reach my goal. I don't want to just post announcements. I want to post things that people are excited about and that they want to share with their friends. And so analytics is easy. If you have your church account on Facebook, you can make that a business page. Same with Instagram. Instagram has more of a simplistic interface. Facebook's a little more complicated. And that's probably a whole nother video to dive into. But
Mhm.
really, if you could focus on your saves and your shares, those are powerful, powerful, powerful things. And that's when you know, hey, my church is feeling connected with what we're posting, the content we're sharing. It's relevant. It's hitting home for them. It's just what they needed this week. And those are the kind of things we want to hear when it comes to creating content for our church. So I would say track your saves, track your shares, forget about the likes, forget about all the growth hacks, really begin to foster community.
I know one of the huge things for our department, really a shift that happened at our church, in our social media world, is when we sat down and we started. It was on a weekly basis at first, looking at all of the posts that we made in the previous week and
Mm-hmm.
checking not only the post reach but the post engagement. And what we did, we made like a ratio, as like a percentage of for how many people reached, how many people actually engaged with it in some capacity. And what
Yes,
we
that's
were able to
brilliant.
what we were able to see very quickly is the posts that did amazingly well and the posts that were like horribly time consuming and yet nobody interacted with it in any capacity. So it really helped us narrow down and figure out what works and what doesn't. And I think that's just going to be exactly it. Not the same thing is going to work for every church. Figure out
Yep.
what works for you and post that consistently.
Yep.
All right. The answer to this question probably changes like every other week, but we get it all the time. Asking you officially as of right now, should we be using hashtags? The answer is changing all the time.
Okay, so my rebuttal to that question would be, why hashtags? I feel like hashtags are an easy segue to really just say, how can I boost the love on my account? If you're asking why hashtags, I would say if your goal is to create engagement and your goal is to create some like awareness to your account, I feel like the number one overlooked thing on Instagram for churches would be Instagram stories. And I'll get back to the hashtag, but I do want to say this though, that I think the more, I guess maybe a better question or a better way to ask would be like, how can we boost engagement? What things are working on social media for me to bring some new life, some freshness, and some more visibility to my account? And I'm a big advocate for Instagram stories. And I think for churches, it doesn't always feel practical. Like, why should we be making Instagram stories? Who is on this? What do we say? What do we do? This is weird. Like, isn't this for influencers?
Mhm.
I don't think this really fits in the church world. But it really, really does, because Instagram stories are a very, very powerful way to show your audience that you're there, that you want to connect with them one-on-one more than a graphic. And it really, really, in the algorithm, even to get like in the nitty gritty of social media, it really favors you. So the more that you're posting on stories, the more visible your content is going to be to your audience. Yes, hashtags work. Should you use them? I really, really recommend them. And, I have a whole strategy behind that. We can talk about that even more too, using local hashtags like, blank city, fill in the blank city, church. That's a good hashtag. You can use like some Jesus hashtags, hashtag faith over fear, hashtag pray first, hashtag God is love. But really, if you're not able to hit it well with the hashtags, I think the Instagram stories are really where it's at, because for churches, you want them to see your face. You want them to see what's going on. Imagine them opening up an Instagram story that's your pastor saying, hey, I hope you have a great Monday. Is what I'm drinking in my coffee. How do you take your coffee? Or like, what's your favorite flavor or craver coffee? Whatever, you know what I'm saying.
Right.
And so I think it goes a long way to show the personal touch. So yeah, hashtags can work as far as a little growth hack, but really what I think the biggest way to grow and to create that authentic, genuine community is really the Instagram story. So don't be afraid to record yourself. Might take a couple takes. It really will feel awkward at first, but I promise you, the people who are following you want to know, they want to see, they want to hear all the things.
This next question is a big one, and I think you'll probably have the same reaction to it that I did. So should social media replace the need for a church website? And kind of tacked on a second question, but I think it's related. Should announcements in general be moved out of the service and onto social media?
You know what? This is a very, very challenging, I think, point when it comes to churches being on social media. There's this feeling of we have to be effective and get the word out and make sure our congregation is there. And there's this urgency, because we know bulletins don't work anymore. We know email marketing is like a so-so type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of feels like social media is like the last thing we have to teach our congregation about what's coming up, show them what's happening.
Right.
But I think this is a really big pivot that the church has to make. And it's that our social media accounts are not just for us telling our audience, hey, do this. It's not for our own agenda. Our account is really to serve the people that attend our church. It's not a place for an announcement dump. It's really a place to give free advice, free value, book recommendations, hey, what can we pray for you for? And this is hard because as church marketers, and if you're listening, you're at some capacity trying to grow your church's audience and you're trying to keep your church relevant. And so it makes sense, we should be posting announcements, right? Like, this is where people are. So if this is where everyone is, we should tell them what's going on. Right. But we live in the digital world where if someone sniffs out an agenda, we're out of there, especially Absolutely. With like millennials and Gen Z. And so I would caution people from posting a ton of announcement or this is what's coming up, or, hey, we need this from you. But really, how can you give first, no strings attached? And that's what people need, right? Like, no one ever got saved from all the announcements. Like, hey, you need Jesus and we have a worship night next week. Like, come. Like, No, I think like a scripture or maybe a video of your lead pastor praying. But this is tough. Like, this is a hard thing to navigate. And we've kind of talked about this to some extent. We're living in the sacred space of church and creating community, but then there's all these secular marketing strategies and all of these like psychology things that come into how we post and the way we post. And it's like, Does that really fit into the church world? It's like there's secular ideas or tactics or strategies, but really the heart of it is to get more people connected to Jesus. And so sometimes we have to go out of the traditional space of we're just posting announcements. We're conservative. Sometimes we have to, like try to post a reel or push ourselves as content creators outside of our comfort zone and do some things that are relevant to the people we're trying to reach. So I get it. Whoever asked that question, I get it. It is such a hard balance. It's such a hard tension, the announcement piece. And then, should this replace our church website? No, because the church website and the church social media have two different functions. They're two different platforms. And they're both very intentional, but they don't have the same goal in mind. The
Right.
website is really to direct the new people. And maybe you already have this philosophy figured out if you're watching. But it tends to be placed to like, hey, learn more about our staff. Hey, if you're new, click here. This is what to expect. Things like that. Whereas our social media is our personality. That's who we are. Like the
Hmm.
website is for the newcomers, come on in or sign up for something quick. But that social media account and the way we interact there is really a personality. And that's how us as humans, we connect with each other, right? Based off personality. So I get
Right.
it. It's hard with the tension between announcements, but we have to just remember, even though we're working at a church, it doesn't mean we're not content creators. Like content creators aren't just on YouTube, and they're not the ones that we see featured all over and winning People's Choice Awards. Like we really are
Right.
content creators. And I think that we have to shift our mindset when it comes to church marketing, that we are content creators. We're not announcement people. We are, and we're not regurgitating what was said in staff, being that we are content creators. Our goal is to create fresh content that connects people to Jesus and shows them that church is still relevant.
One of the things that we've run into the past talking with other churches is, and even with some of the things you listed, things like a bulletin, things like Facebook, other different communication methods. I think social media originally just got lumped into those. And what I see those really are tools to advertise ministry, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what I think the difference that the church world really needs to understand is that social media should not be an advertisement for ministry. It should be an extension of ministry that happens
Yep.
online, right? It is a
Yep.
new place to minister. It is a new
Mm-hmm.
mission field. And that's not going to work if all you're doing is talking about, hey, what you need to do is come to our event where the
Yep.
real ministry happens. That's not how
Yes.
people want to interact.
And I want to add something to that. I love your point that you just mentioned. And this is what me and my pastor talk about a lot. Our social media is casting nets. That's what we said from day one. When I
Mhm.
first entered the world of social media and church marketing 5 years ago, it was so different. Back in 2015, it's nothing the way it was now. We didn't have reels. There was no
Absolutely.
such thing as TikTok. It was really all graphic driven. And even at
Right.
that place, we recognize that our social media is, we're casting nets. That's what we're doing. Our church
Yeah,
social media really isn't actually for our regular attenders. And that's such a mind shift, that post as if this
definitely.
is not for your regular attender, your core family. This is really for the people who have only came through our doors once. Maybe they saw their friend shared on their story, so they clicked it and it was cool, it was relevant, it was fun, and so they followed. So just
Right.
shifting your mindset as a content creator. We're not creating necessarily just for our church members. We're creating for the people who we want to become church members. And how is, like you said, is it an extension of that ministry, or is it just like a, hey, like, come over here, we're asking another thing of you, join our thing? But are we really like giving that free value?
Tying in exactly with what you were just talking about, the last question that we have, and probably the most important question out of all of these, is how can we do that? How can we evangelize through social media?
Yeah, the way we evangelize is by simply showing up to where people are. Are we answering the questions that people are asking? Are we posting about relevant topics? I'm not saying controversial, but relevant topics. There's a difference
Right.
between the two. Are we posting about relevant topics to where people who are not yet saved can still digest our content? Or is it so churchy and the words that we use, like, are they so standoffish that people are like, I don't connect to this, I don't relate to this?
Sure.
But I think being cautious of some of the church lingo that is easy to fall into. As I've been typing
Right.
captions and been like, Pentecostal, like, lift your hands, hallelujah. Like, there's some people who get weirded out by those things, and not that
Totally.
they are weird themselves, but people who are not yet saved, they feel uncomfortable, and
Sure.
it's almost not disarming yet. So I think, one, what are people going through right now? What do people who are far from Jesus, what do they need to hear? Maybe that 2020 wasn't a waste. Maybe that
Right.
God is a God of provision. Again, churchy word, but how can you distill that down to a way that people who don't go to church can understand and feel hopeful after reading it? So
Yeah.
we're casting nets to people, meaning we don't make advertisements, we don't make content created just for our core families or our core church members, but we're thinking, what do people who are far from Jesus, what do they need to hear right now? And how can I present that creatively? And that's such a big mindset shift, and it's going to take more time. So know that creating easy content, like, hey, this is what's coming up, this is the rundown, that can, be kind of simple to do time after time, but really stepping outside of your creative comfort zone and saying, okay, what do people today need? What do they need to hear? Is there a worship song that might be relevant to today? How can I make that creative? How can I make that into a reel, or all those kinds of things? So I think the way we evangelize is by answering the questions that people are asking, talking about, going on a live and talking about how to manage the anxiety that comes with working from home or doing college online. I'm just thinking some of those practical topics that people who don't yet know God, they need to hear, because if they don't, they'll just Google it, and who knows what's on Google, So what a testimony it is if people came to your church's Instagram page to be like, hey, like, I need a little boost today. Like, I don't really go here. Like, my friend goes here, but like, I know they always have like good stuff, encouraging stuff, or they give good advice. So I think the best way, just focusing our shift and our perspective onto, hey, we're casting nets. Every post, we're casting nets.
I really appreciate you coming on today and talking about everything social media. This is, it will always be a hot topic conversation of this churches struggling to figure out how to use these tools effectively. But if there's a church that is especially struggling or wants to know more and take everything next level, you just started a business on helping churches do that. Why don't you tell people a little bit about that and give you some shameless self-promotion time at the end of the video?
Yeah, so I just started my own business, and really my why is pretty much what we just summed up in this conversation. There's such a gap from, the big churches we all look up to and get inspo from, Transformation, VU, Zoe Church, Mosaic. We're all, let's be honest, we're all like Instagram searching them every week if we're running out of ideas. And, and then I see smaller to medium-sized churches and the creative gap that there is between the two. So my heart in my business is to help people just like you and I close the gap for their church and say, hey, how can we get you a step closer to, not watering down the gospel, but making it digestible and making it creatively, making it aesthetic, taking the gospel and showing it to people and saying, hey, like, we're here, we're with you. And so that's really my heart behind my business. And, we do social media management. We do all kinds of like launch packages. We do Facebook, Instagram ad strategy. So if there's like a big conference coming up at your church and you're like, hey, like, this is a huge thing, I do not have all the time, or like my team doesn't have the time to do this, send it our way, we'll handle it. And even if your church, like you said, needed really a one-on-one like strategy and like, hey, Liv, can you come alongside of us? Teach us how to put together an effective content calendar. How can we make our content last longer? I'll come alongside of you. We'll track those analytics together. We'll come up with ideas together. I'm a graphic designer as well. So a lot of what I do is helping churches with their graphics and creating those. So there's a ton of things we offer. There's something new that we're rolling out here is our group coaching. So if you're a social media manager at your church, or you're the creative director, creative pastor, come be a part of our group program. And this is a 9-week intensive where we dive deep into all things social media. You're going to walk away with a ton of tools, a ton of knowledge, insight, and really just confidence in approaching the online space. And it's a great thing. I have had some people go through it already, loved it. And so, yeah, if you all need help with social media, come my way. All my info will be in the description of this video. Click the link. I love to chat, love to connect with you. And I'm excited to see the church as a whole just begin to more and more reach culture and change it for Jesus.
Thanks so much for watching this episode of Blackbar. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the Blackbar podcast, released every single week, where we go more into depth into the topics we talk about in these videos. In addition, if you would like to join the Blackbar volunteer team and help make content or help other struggling churches on our Discord, make sure to check out the link in the description below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.